Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's information session, Research Grant Writing Support Workshop. I'm going to pass it off to Sarah to do a quick welcoming remark. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Masicho, Haicho, Kainani, everyone, for joining us today. I get to welcome you to this info session about the Tri-Council grant writing workshops coming up in March. This is part of an initiative called RCASH, which stands for Research Capacity, Access, and Strength Here, meaning here in the Northwest Territories. I'm Dr. Sarah Komarniski, Research Chair, Health and Community at Aurora College, and I've been lucky to live here in Denendeh, the Northwest Territories, for the last 3.5 years. I'm really grateful to be joining you today from Sombake Yellowknife on the unceded lands of the Willowday Yellowknives Dene, which they call Chief Dry Geese Territory. These lands are part of the broader RCASH territory, which stretches north, east, and south of Great Slave Lake, known as Tindi in Willowday. The RCASH peoples are one of the many Indigenous nations of the land we now call the Northwest Territories, known to Dene as Denendeh, land of the people. The Northwest Territories is home to Inuvialuit in the far north, Métis people across the territory, and First Nations, including Gwich'in, Quincho, and the distinct nations of the Satu, Decho, Akacho, and South Slave regions. I'd like to invite any of our participants today to make acknowledgements in the chat of the territory you're living and working in, or share where you're joining from. So a bit about RCASH. The idea for RCASH came from conversations between Dr. Jessica Dutton, then staff with Aurora Research Institute, now a research associate there, and Dr. Stephanie Erlbacher-Fox, who is a born and raised Northerner and scientific director of Hodi Seda. If you're not familiar with Hodi Seda, I'd recommend checking out their website. You can find the link in the chat. Jenny's posted it there. Hodi Seda is a research support center for community members, organizations, and researchers involved in health research in the Northwest Territories. We're really excited to see RCASH go live. It's been a long process of planning. This was originally supposed to be a series of in-person workshops back in 2020, but we had to switch to an online format. And so we're all really excited to be here and sharing what that's going to look like in terms of grant writing support workshops. The whole RCASH initiative is brought to you by the Aurora Research Institute and Hodi Seda and funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada and the GNWT Department of Education, Culture and Employment. For the Tri-Council grant writing workshops we're discussing today, we are especially grateful for the very generous support of the Offices of Research at Carleton University and Wilfrid Laurier University, who have lent us their expertise and people to put on these workshops. Thank you. So RCASH is a virtual grant writing support center designed specifically for Northern researchers, especially in the Northwest Territories, with online resources for researchers at every stage, whether just starting out or seasoned academics. The overall goal is to increase capacity for writing successful federal research grants. If research funds are won and held in the North, it puts Northerners in direct control of what is researched, how, and with whom. And it supports researchers who are living and working in the North, actively working with communities and doing research in a way that prioritizes local needs. It also builds the experience and infrastructure needed to continue winning grants to get more research funded and conducted in the North. So these grant writing workshops are geared to help directly with that. Jenny's also put the link to the RCASH webpage in the chat. And if you have a chance, save it and take a look sometime. We've been adding some new resources, recordings of the panel presentations we've held over the last few weeks, and we'll continue adding more resources in the next bit. There's also a link there to register for the grant writing workshops. Before we move on, I want to quickly recognize our team who's been working hard for many months to make this all possible. You've already met briefly our project manager, Jenny Vandermeer of Jenny Vandermeer Consulting. She'll be hosting the info session today. Dr. Jessica Dutton, Research Associate with Aurora Research Institute, is the lead on the project. We have Jessica Simpson of Hodi Seda. She's providing tech support today. So if you have any trouble with your tech, you can give her a call. Her number's up on the screen there. But she's also been supporting the project for the last 2 years. Amanda Chalk-Parrott at Aurora College has lent her grant writing expertise to planning this endeavor, and she's helped to create a lot of the guidance resources you'll find on the website. Allison Chandler is a former research coordinator with ARI and current PhD student at Dalhousie who contributed to the original planning of the workshop and created most of the phase 1 guidance resources, again, on the website. And Bambi Amos is the executive assistant at the Aurora Research Institute, whose support has made this all possible. So today's info session, I'm really excited about. We have the leads for both of the Tri-Council grant writing workshops that we're hosting in March here today. Each virtual workshop will have dedicated support from one of these research funding specialists who will provide 4 live virtual sessions and interim support through 2 weeks as participants work on writing and refining elements of a funding proposal, Tri-Council funding proposal. This has been a long time coming and we're so lucky to have them here. So I'm just going to, I was going to share my screen, but I can't figure out how to do that, so I'm not going to bother. But today in the info session, it's a chance to learn about these workshops. Will include meet the people involved and get your questions answered. So we're going to start with a technology check-in with Jenny, and then Dr. Kyla Reed will introduce herself and talk a bit about the social sciences and humanities workshops and the plan that's being held from March 1 to 11 and the plans for that. Then Dr. Ildiko DeBoer and Dr. Stephanie Whitney will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they have planned for the natural sciences and engineering workshop from March 14th to 24th. We'll have a chance for Amanda Chalk-Parrott to talk a little bit about applying for and holding Tri-Council funds in the NWT context, and then we'll open for Q&A from everybody. But first we have a quick poll to start things off. Jenny's going to load up the poll. Take a second to answer the question. What's your experience with Tri-Council grants?
We still have some people submitting their poll results.
Well, thankfully, everyone's at the right workshop. I can see that pretty clearly. So that's a good thing. So it looks like right now we have about 12 people answered, and it's about split between people who have applied for and received Tri-Council funding before, and those who've never applied for or participated in a Tri-Council funding application before. So that's really cool. It's a chance to get to know who's here in the room today. And with that, I'll end my welcoming remarks and pass it on to Jenny for a bit of tech. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. So I will formally introduce myself. Please allow me to introduce myself in my language, in Denikide, North Slavey, the language spoken in the Satu region. Jenny Vandermeer City, di Delani Gozate, Satu, and the Dufe Gonsanakwe, Nika Gutinilisa, the Damas, So my name is Jenny Vandermeer. I am, as Sarah mentioned, the project coordinator, but I'll also be facilitating today's information session. I'm originally from Delaney. I'm Saftuathinidene, and but I currently live in Norman Wells. I'm a consultant. My business is called Jenny Vandermeer Consulting, and I'm very excited to be here today with you all. So I'll be using chat quite a bit to help guide today's discussion. So please open up your chat. If you click at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little box that says chat. And so we'll be on today from 9:30 to 10:30 Mountain Standard Time. This session is being recorded and it will be posted on the RCASH website. If you can, please keep your camera on. I just find it's more engaging, but I do understand that the Wi-Fi in some of the communities isn't that great. So if you need to turn your camera off, that's okay. If you're having any kind of tech issues, please call or text Jessica Simpson at 867-447-0145, and she hopefully will be able to help you out. Please turn off your phones or try to limit any distractions. I realize that might be difficult if a lot of us are working from home. Please mute yourself if not speaking. And then also I ask that you maybe grab some paper and pen just to jot down notes for later on during our question period. So now that the tech has been taken care of, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Kyla Reed from Carleton University.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my name is Kyla Reed, and I am joining today from Ottawa, Ontario, which is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin people. Before, I've lived in Ottawa now for about 10 years. And before that, I lived in many places, but I'm originally from Thunder Bay, Ontario, in Northern Ontario. So I'm going to share my screen now. I only have 3 slides. I'm not a big slide person. You will notice they're pretty bland in terms of their format and design. Can everyone see that? Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, well, that's me, obviously. So this is just a little bit of background on me. I've been working in research administration and research management for over 10 years. I've been at Carleton for coming on 10 years now. And before that, I worked at Lakehead University in a very similar role for just almost 2 years. I have experience supporting, here's your first acronym, social science and humanities scholars at small and medium-sized institutions applying to a wide range of funders. My workshop that we're running will focus primarily on applying to SSHRC, but I think a lot of the lessons are transportable to social science and humanities projects to other funders as well. And then I've had the immense pleasure of working on several projects in close collaboration with Northerners on a diverse range of topics, including Northern economies, modern treaties, and community-led energy efficiency projects. And that's both in the Northwest Territories, but also in Nunavut. I haven't had the joy of working in the Yukon yet. Okay, I think that's next. Okay, so I thought I would also say, like, why Carleton? What does this have to do with the North? I recognize Southern institutions sometimes come in and assume they have a lot of expertise when we don't always. But I do have, my institution does have a lot of hands-on experience working on Northern-led, I would say, projects, even if we're, say, administering them financially through our institution. For the main project, which is I think how Jessica originally reached out to me and I ended up on this list, was I worked very closely with Yellowknife-based scholar Stephanie Earl-Backer Fox on a SSHRC funded partnership grant on the application to develop that project, which was in partnership with several Indigenous governments. And I noticed people in the chats, a lot of your governments are participating in that project to research modern treaty implementation across the Canadian North. And many of the governments participating are from the NWT. And then I've also worked on a number of other SSHRC and Government of Canada funded research on alternative energy solutions for remote and Indigenous communities, on sustainable development of the Arctic, on the integration of traditional and local knowledge into Western science. One of my researchers works a lot in Geohaven, in Nunavut with the Hunters and Trappers Association there on harvest studies. So there's lots of cool stuff I've really benefited a lot from learning about. And then also Carleton is home to an interdisciplinary master's program in Northern Studies. And it's interdisciplinary because it includes both the sciences, physical geography, biology, but also economics, social science, these kind of topics as well. I have one last slide. So I thought it would be helpful if people kind of knew what they were getting into. And I believe these slides are going to be made available for people, or the recording will. So I don't feel like you have to write this all down now. But basically, I've broken the workshop into 4 sections that will focus on application components that are common across most SSHRC applications. You will note that we're not actually going to work on writing the main proposal part in the workshops. I find that's a bit more, needs to be a bit more one-to-one. So you'll note at the end that if you do write an initial draft of your actual project proposal, I'm willing to read it and give you one-to-one feedback in writing. And then if you have questions or follow up, we can book a time to do that during the 2 weeks. But that would happen outside of the workshop sessions. But it is a standing offer. And I believe Sarah, Jenny, Jessica have my contact information if you do need to get in contact with me about that in advance. But for the actual 4 sessions where we'll be together, the first is, and apologies that I'm looking off to the side because my slides are on my second monitor. The first is focused on drafting the knowledge mobilization plan. So knowledge mobilization is a SHRC term. It's sometimes called knowledge translation or knowledge dissemination. But it all basically means the same thing, which is about like turning your study into stuff that other people are interested in. That includes other academics, but also community members and things like that. The second session will focus on integrating training and mentoring into your project, which is usually focused on a training and mentoring plan. This will include students, but also could include community members, could include other research professionals, because I recognize in the North, there's no graduate programs, no universities based in the North. So we might have to be more creative about how we think about training and mentoring, but it's definitely still something that can be done. Then we'll do a session specifically on budget, which is for SHRC especially is its own special beast. And then the last session we'll look at the project summary. For all of them, we will use a mix of presentations, and I'll try to keep the presentations relatively short, breakout groups, there'll be independent work time, an opportunity for you to get feedback from one another, as well as time for us to engage in roundtable discussion together. And then the goal here is to learn about best practices, for you to walk away from the workshop with at least some of the sections of your application in initial draft form, and to have received feedback from your peers and also me on those sections. And as I know below, all sessions will have suggested optional pre-reading items. Oh, I said matters there. And as I noted, you are encouraged to write an initial draft of your actual project proposal in advance of the workshop. And this will allow you, the participants, to get more from the sessions dedicated to the other application components, but you don't have to do that in order to participate. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Reed. So we'll hold questions until after all the presenters speak. So please, again, jot down your questions in a notebook or whatever you need to keep track. So I'll now ask the folks from Wilfrid Laurier to take over.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ildiko De Boer. I'm the manager of research facilitation in the Office of Research Services at Laurier. Thank you for joining us today. And Wilfrid Laurier University is located in Waterloo on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. And I will just share my screen as I have a few slides, well, more than a few. Okay. Yeah, so we'll just briefly introduce you to our team. So we do have several team members who will be participating in the workshops. Stephanie Whitney, my colleague, will talk about Laurier partnerships. So specifically the Laurier and the Government of the Northwest Territories partnership. We'll go over the workshops and then of course provide our contact information as well if you have any questions before or after the workshop. So my name is, as I mentioned, Ildiko, and I joined Laurier in 2014 as a research facilitator in the natural sciences, where I work really closely with faculty to identify funding opportunities and also to support the development of funding applications. So that's a variety of grants from NSERC as well as other applications as well. So in the current role, I'm the manager of research facilitation, and I provide leadership to our grant facilitation team in the Office of Research Services and support to our Vice President Research and AVP Research in developing key strategic initiatives as well as priority setting for larger major research funding opportunities. And I completed my PhD at the University of Guelph. And my colleague, so Laura Green, she will be presenting, helping with running some of the workshops with us. So she's our research facilitator in the natural sciences. She just started not too long ago. However, she's been with Laurier for the past 3 years as a postdoctoral fellow in our kinesiology department. And as I mentioned before, so our natural science research facilitator works very closely with faculty members in supporting them in their grant funding applications. So providing feedback on grants, delivering workshops, and also developing research funding plans with faculty. And Lara completed her PhD at Brock University. Another colleague is Agnes Bentiguer. So Agnes is our industry liaison specialist, and Agnes is responsible for developing and enhancing our collaborative relationships with our researchers and external organizations. So this is private sector, non-governmental organization, and our public sector as well. And she also supports universities' intellectual property and technology transfer activities as well. And Agnes holds an MBA from the University of Philippines and a Master's of Laws and Intellectual Property from the University of Turin. And I will pass it over to Stephanie Whitney to present some of the slides.
Thanks, Ildiko. So I joined the Office of Research Services in 2020 as the manager of research partnerships. And my primary role that would be of interest to this group is around the stewardship and expansion of Laurier's public sector partnerships. And as Ildiko mentioned, Laurier's largest research partnership is with the government of the Northwest Territories, which is why likely we were chosen to participate in this session. And we're very grateful and honored to be here with you. And so another part of my role is governance of Laurier's research centers and institutes, many of which do collaborate with Northern Research through the partnership and with community members as well. And I did my PhD at Waterloo. And so next slide, please, Ildiko. And Shauna Reibling is our Officer of Knowledge Mobilization. And Kyla has done an introduction as to what KM means or can cover broadly. And so Shauna is working with faculties pre-award, but also post-award with grants first, crafting the knowledge mobilization plans, as well as then helping faculty members, researchers implement those plans. And Shauna has both a BA and an MA in communications from Simon Fraser. And so one thing I wanted to point out, and we'll go into this more detail in our workshop around partnerships, but oftentimes folks outside of the academia think of research as kind of the thing that you're doing, right? Collecting information. And at Laurier, I want to make sure that we stress, and we'll go into this more in our workshop as well, that we think of partnerships sort of as a cycle. So not really a linear thing or set a plan per se, but involving just, again, not just the research, getting the data itself, but sort of from start to end. What is research? It is information about a subject of interest, kind of going through to, perhaps applying for grants, and then the outcome in society being the benefit of the research. So at Laurier, we support research throughout the process, if you will. Next slide, please, Ildiko. And so just very briefly, I want to touch on our partnership with the GNWT, as Ildiko had mentioned. It was something that was initiated in 2009 with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources being the primary partner. And so both ENR and Laurier put in some seed funding to support this partnership. And that seed funding has been leveraged over 1,000% over the course of 10 plus years. And so in 2019, we extended this partnership to 2029, but with an expanded focus and intentional commitments from both Laurier and the GNWT to ensure that research is being conducted in areas of interest for the other departments because Laurier has researchers and subject matter expertise outside of the natural sciences as well. And so Laurier opened an office in Yellowknife in 2016, and the focus of our research, it's very broad, but to summarize, captures collecting baseline ecological data, as well as understanding the impact of environmental change and industrial activity within the Northwest Territories. So there's just a few stats at the bottom around our research coverage. I think the most interesting, impressive, I would say, would be the middle number of how many students and postdoctoral fellows have been trained through the partnership since 2010. Thanks so much. I'll pass it back to Ildiko.
Thanks, Stephanie. So I'll just briefly go over the workshops that we will be delivering. So they will all be 2 hours long from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. MST. And we will be also be providing suggested pre-reading and potentially some homework before each workshop. So that should take about half an hour to an hour long beforehand. And we will be sending those out about a week before each workshop. So I'll just briefly talk about the format and then briefly discuss each workshop. So each workshop will have an introduction and a background, which will be kept fairly short. We will discuss examples. So we'll talk about we will share an example with you and then discuss as a group what is good about that section and what needs to be modified. We will also have time for independent writing and an open question period during that time, and then a breakout room discussion with peers, and then also bring the group back together for a group discussion and have an additional question period. So the first workshop will be the most significant contributions to research. So this is, and CERC assesses this as excellence of the researcher. So I think in most of the NSERC applications would typically be a 5-page CV attachment, and this is part of that. So this workshop will cover, what to include, how to highlight impacts in clear and concise manner. And as I mentioned before, each workshop will review and discuss an example and provide independent writing and question period and discussion time as well. Our second workshop will be around knowledge mobilization and partnerships. So more research funding grants require knowledge mobilization strategy, as well as, partnered research is increasingly becoming encouraged by granting agencies as well. So for this workshop, we will cover how to involve partners throughout the research process, as well as knowledge mobilization strategies, and share successful examples, and also use an NSERC Alliance grant as a model. The third workshop will be budgeting. So budget justifications are, of course, important components of all grant applications, which would really have to show feasibility, as well as depending on the opportunity, sometimes in-kind or cash contributions have to be provided as well. So at this workshop, we will cover grant budget considerations, as well as how to justify your budget request. And the last workshop will be around HQP training, so highly qualified personnel training and mentorship plan. So advancing training is a very important component for NSERC's mission, and we will cover what to include, as well as including equity, diversity, inclusion into your HQP training and mentorship plan. Okay. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and to Stephanie as well. Unfortunately, I do have to, I'll just stop sharing. I do have to leave today's workshop early as I have a sick 2-year-old at home, so I apologize, but please feel free to reach out. And one of the other things I did want to mention is that we will also be available throughout the workshops by email, or happy to set up appointments with anyone as well to discuss any of the sections or any of the funding opportunities. Thank you so much.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ildiko and Stephanie and Wilfred Laurier. So I will now ask Amanda from the Aurora Research Institute to go next.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Chalk-Parrott, and I'm with the Aurora Research Institute and also the Aurora College. And I just want to draw your attention. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to pull up the Aurora Research Institute website because I just want to point out a couple of resources that are available right now as part of the Research Cache series. And let me just find the share screen button. All right, so everybody can see the ARI website. Okay, thank you. So if you're looking for Research Cache, I know Jenny's posted the link as well into the chat, or you can just go to our main page, resources, Research Cache. So this is where if you scroll down, you'll see information about the 2 upcoming grant writing workshops that you can register for, the social sciences or the natural sciences one. The information session we're all at today, and then some of the resources that were put out last year to start off the Research Cache series. So the one I want to draw your attention to today is it's part of session 2, Introduction to Federal Research Funding Environment in Canada. So to hold, specifically tri-agency funding, so funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, the Natural Sciences and Humanities Research Council, or the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, you do have to be affiliated with an eligible institution. And there's a bunch of words there. So what that means, if you scroll down in here, we do have a little paragraph that kind of talks about, you don't necessarily have to be an employee of, Aurora College or Deshinta, and I'll mention there's 4 institutions in the Northwest Territories that are eligible to receive funds. But you do have to have a formal partnership in place with them. For Aurora College, what this looks like is being a research associate, but you don't necessarily have to go through Aurora College to hold tri-agency funding. So in the Northwest Territories, you've got 4 institutions. Aurora College is one of them, the Deshinta Center for Research and Learning, the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, and the Institute for Circumpolar Health Research. And depending on the type of grant that you're going for, and you can see like Deshinta is able to hold SSHRC funding, but not NSERC funding. Institute for Circumpolar Health Research is the only institute in the Northwest Territories that can hold CIHR. I believe they have a research associate program as well that's kind of similar to Aurora College's. But if you are from an institution that is not one of these 4, it doesn't mean that you can't hold funding. It just means you kind of have to make a partner. Well, you either can seek eligibility yourself, which is a quite lengthy process, which unfortunately we won't be able to cover in Research Cache, but it is possible. Or you can form a partnership with one of these 4 institutions that you might have similar goals with, similar, project outcomes, and they'll be able to do the financial administration part of the project. So I think that was it that I wanted to kind of point out, was just encourage you, if you haven't already gone on to the Research Cache website, there is, and there's a video too, that if you don't want to read through the PDF, you can just watch the video that will go through some of this information about, what's involved with actually holding the funds and what does it mean to be eligible and where does this money come from, kind of thing. There's some great things about, what is the basic parts of a research proposal, things to consider before you do research in the Northwest Territories, how to come up with a good research question, as well as a couple of the research panels that happened earlier in February that were really nice. We had conversations with a lot of community members and Northern research leaders. yeah, so keep your eye on this website. More resources will pop up. I think that's all I wanted to share today. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for that, Amanda. So it's now question and answer time. So we have about 20 minutes left in the session. If you have any questions for any of the presenters, any of the instructors today, please raise your hand, or if you're not comfortable, you can definitely type your question in chat. Any questions for any of the instructors? Or for Amanda from Aurora Research Institute, or for Sarah, or even for myself?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
It's for Amanda. Amanda, I'm just wondering, you mentioned that the affiliate research partners, Aurora College, the Inuvialuit. I'm just wondering if the Gwich'in have anything going on in terms of being affiliated with research through the college.
I believe we do have a couple research associates that are part of the Gwich'in Tribal Council. But in terms of, and I can't speak on behalf of GTC, so I don't know if they are pursuing eligibility or not, or where they are in their, if they've investigated their own process. I believe, I'm going to double check. I believe Christy Benson is a research associate at Aurora College.
Yes, I am. I was just
okay.
Associate, yeah.
And I'm like, I believe she's here too, but
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So
and maybe Christy could speak a bit more, because I have no, I can't speak on behalf of them, so I don't know what what they've planned, but they, like, anybody is welcome to apply to be a research associate with the college. It's a fairly straightforward process. And then what the college's role is, basically they'll do the financial administration for you, and they'll kind of funnel the money from, the money goes to the college, and then they'll distribute it to whatever organization or whoever you're working with, or pay your bills, kind of thing.
yeah, okay, good. Yeah, good to know. I was just wondering about partners involved with outside of the list that you have. So I can speak with Christy at a later time, and we can look at what we could do with the Gwich'in.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we've, as Aurora Research Institute, we've partnered quite a few projects with Gwich'in Tribal Council as well. And it just means that the financial aspect of it, or like Aurora College handles.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amanda. We'll talk again later. Thank you.
Sounds good. No worries, Tag.
Thank you for that question, Tag. So we have a question from Kaylee Brown. She's entered it, or sorry, they've entered it in the chat. It says, my project aligns more with CIHR than NSERC or SHRC. Which workshop would be recommended? And I'm going to pass that off to Sarah to answer.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm not sure that I'm the right person to answer this one, as I'm not familiar with which how they line up with each other. What I noticed from both workshops is that there is a lot of overlap with some of the pieces, right? There's a training and mentorship and a and a knowledge mobilization piece shared. I think it could also depend on the specifics of the project. So what your is your project like really on the hard science medical side, or on the more on the social sciences and qualitative kind of research side? I wonder if Kyla, if you got any thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. There are some sort of key differences between applying to, say, SHRC and CIHR in terms of how the application is structured, but most of those key differences show up in that proposal section, which is part of why, and that's true across even SHRC programming. Different SHRC programs have different requirements in the proposal document. So that's why I'm focusing on the other components. CIHR tends to integrate those more into the main proposal document, but I think you could get something from it. But I would agree with Sarah. It would depend more on the methods you're using, I think. I mean, I don't know what my colleagues from Laurier would say, and I'd be interested in their thoughts as well. But if you're doing more sort of social science, community engagement type methods, I think you could still get something from the SHRC focused workshop, maybe not as much as you would if we were doing CIHR applications in full transparency.
I would agree with Kyla on that. I was just going to say as well, and same with what Sarah had mentioned earlier about the proposal topic and then the methods. If you're sort of or like on that divide between, or like if we think of the Venn diagram, we're in the middle, like all of them are going to have something in common. If you're closer to the SHRC side, then I would say go to that. If you're closer a little bit to the NSERC side, I would say go to that. You could come to both and you could likely glean some useful information from both or either. So we'd be happy to chat with you, I think, offline to get some more specific information about your project and then advise you that way as well.
Thank you so much for that question, Kaylee. Great question. So it looks like Sunila has their hand raised. So Sunila, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Sunila. I'm here in Fort Smith and I work for Aurora College. I'm an research ethics manager as well as manager regional programs here. And I actually have not similar kind of question, but I do have a lot of background in health and I have done a lot of CIHR related grant writing, but have not really dealt with SHRC as well as NSERC. My interest in coming here and learning this is exactly that the methods are really like the whole process is same, but there are certain facets which are very specific SHRC and specific NSERC. The question I'm asking is that twofold, is that if I just attend only SHRC grant and I want to know something about NSERC grant, not particularly from writing point of view, but to understand what the nitty-gritty is it possible for me to kind of listen in at a later time? Will those grant writing things will be recorded, and more importantly, will they be available to those who do not attend? My interest in this whole thing is primarily very, very focused and nuanced in the sense that basically sitting at Aurora College ethics, I would like to know what all people are kind of coming up in a knowledge development area before, so that we can guide them in a better fashion for ethics and minimize the pain at a later time. So I'm looking more at sitting at that vantage point for peer review and understanding, gee, this is how it is. That's why we are. So my interest at twofold. I would like to learn the technique, which I have not ever utilized, but more importantly, how do these ideas get generated at the peer review level? So thank you. And I just wanted to find out whether I've registered myself for SHRC, but primarily because that's the only time I have available. But if I can't commit to the second part, will I be able to kind of access some of those resources at a later time if I want? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Sunila. I'm going to pass that off to Sarah to respond.
Hey, Sunila. So there was a lot there, and forgive me if I don't respond to everything, but there were a couple of things that I wanted to point out based on your comments. So one is that these workshops are really intended to create a space for people to work on elements of an application. So it's not really a space to observe necessarily. It is supposed to be, a chance to work on an application. So people are encouraged to come with a project idea. This could be like a really not fully formed project idea, but the intention is that you've got a project idea in mind and you're there to write and work on it and learn in that way. It's not really a chance to see what people are working on kind of thing. It's for working on your own thing and collaborating with others to get everybody a great draft of these pieces. The second piece I wanted to mention is that at the end of these workshops, you won't have a completed grant. I think you've heard Kyla say and Stephanie too, and Ildiko, that these are pieces that commonly appear in these in these grant applications, but there'd be a lot of work afterwards to put it all together, to pull together the proposal and to like get it ready for a specific competition. And then another thing I wanted to say about the recording is we're not planning to record the sessions, again, because these are workshops. It's people like working on their own projects and discussing those. We aren't planning to record them to have them available online. But one thing that could be possible is working with our partners to share, for example, the slides that introduce the materials and those kinds of resources to have available on our website, so that offline you'd have access to those, like, you know, the basics of what knowledge mobilization looks like for SSHRC and those kinds of things. So I don't know if I've answered all your questions, but maybe again, this is another chance to talk offline and see how you might meet your goals, you know, still and get access to some of the information you're looking for. But yeah, those are just some things I wanted to point out. Thanks for your questions, Sunila.
Thank you so much. No, I just want to make sure that if this is not a right time, or like I don't want to kind of, you know, block somebody else's opportunity if that is what not the, like, this particular forum is for. We will chat offline. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Great question. Tammy, it looks like you've got your hand raised, and I'm going to ask people when you're speaking if you could turn your cameras on. Thank you so much, Tammy. You might still be muted, Tammy.
Thanks. I thought I hit both of them. Thank you very much, ladies. This has been absolutely wonderful listening to all of your expertise in these areas, which sometimes seem foreign to us, that are more practically based in our approaches. My question is, how do we become a research associate at Aurora College if we are a staff member?
Do you want me to handle that one, Jenny?
Yeah, I was actually trying to type to you, so.
The good news is you don't have to. If you're a staff, yeah. So Aurora College and Aurora Research Institute staff, you already have everything you need. You can reach out to the Research Services Office here for support. The Research Associate Program is for people who aren't staff but want to do research, you know, and want to have a formal partnership where they'll do research. And you know, we can handle the financing. They can have access to our labs, and it's usually a mutually beneficial relationship. So if you're a staff member, you're good.
So there's no paperwork to be done, no application to be done.
No.
So since that one was easy, I'm going to throw one more out to you, Amanda. If I'm looking to do some community participation involvement in technology mobilization, do you have any suggestions on different SSHRC or NSERC? I don't know, because I've only ever looked at SSHRC. But any grants that might yield positive possibilities?
I think it would really depend. We'd have to connect offline and depend more on what exactly you're looking for. Yeah, I mean, if SSHRC has a couple routine programs at Aurora College, and like this workshop itself is funded through a SSHRC grant. So we'll connect offline, and I think there's a couple options. We can talk more specifically what you're looking for and what's out there.
Thank you. Great questions, Tammy. Do we have any other questions or comments from any of the participants? We have a few minutes left. I'll pause a moment, as sometimes it takes a bit to unmute. All right, looks like there's no further questions. So you'll note that I've added in the chat. Sorry, Sarah, before you speak, I've added the application again for the grant writing workshops, as well as the link for the very quick questionnaire that we're hoping you can fill out. Again, we've added the website, and then if you have any questions, please reach out to us. So Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say once again that this is really a nice chance to work on something, and I'm I'm co-organizing, but I'm planning to participate as well and use the time to write some of these pieces where, you know, usually if you're busy doing other things, it might slide off your plate. And this is the kind of support that that academics at Southern institutions do have access to. And so we're really lucky to have this dedicated time support these sessions. So even if it's not yourself writing something, if you know somebody who might benefit from this, who might have an idea, project idea in mind, do pass it along to them as well. And like Jenny said, fill out the evaluation, check out the link, consider applying to attend, and thanks so much, everybody. Merci.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone for attending. Very good questions. And again, please reach out to us if you have any questions at all. We're happy to help. And with that, I guess we'll close our information session. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. Good
Take care,
session.
everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.